everybody. Welcome to ICC's Game of the Week, with your host, as always, Joel Benjamin. There are many very promising American juniors these days, but one that keeps popping up in Game of the Week is Sam Sevian. He has a bold, aggressive style that is likely to produce exciting games. And when you combine him with Alexei fire on board Shirov, it's a combustible combination. In the Hasselbacken Open in Stockholm, Sevian was ready for Shirov's tricky opening, sacrificing a pawn for good compensation. When Shirov sacrificed the pawn back, and then a rook for good measure, things got really wild. All right, let's have a look at it. Shirov, Sevian. And Shirov has been mainly an e4 player during his career. All right, so we see the Scotch, which used to be a much more popular opening when Kasparov was an active player. Of course, Kasparov just came back and played that Blitz tournament, and he dusted off the Scotch there as well. So maybe it'll make a little bit of a comeback, as I think people still pay attention to what Gary Kay plays in the opening. And Sevian plays knight f6. Which is the most combative move. The other main move is bishop c5, which I think leads to a little bit more of a strategical game. Now knight f6 in the main line, which has been played thousands of times, we see e5. And then black, in almost all the games, decides that queen e7 is less of an imposition than the white queen going to e2, then knight d5. And c4, and so on. As I said, thousands of games. In this game, Shirov plays relatively rare move, queen e2. There are games, but when you compare it to the thousands of times we've seen e5, not so many. Now, black has many ways to meet this move, and who knows what Sevian actually knew about it going in, because it's a pretty rare move. Queen e7 is, I think, has been played most often, and of course it encourages white to play e5 and transpose into the main line. Or if white just develops knight c3, black will be able to play d5, as e takes d5 will not be a discovered check anymore. Of course, if black wants to, take advantage of white's strange move, queen e2, he can try to get a new position. I think Michalewski played bishop c5 against Shirov at another point in the tournament. I think it was a later round too, so maybe Shirov was not completely discouraged by this game. And also there's the move d6. This was played by Kramnik in 2012 against Nakamura, I believe. Sevian plays bishop b4 check. And although, as I tell my more basic level students about this check, is that the general rule of thumb is that a bishop b4, bishop b5 check is not such a good move when the other player can push the pawn, the c pawn, to attack it. This is a case where queen e2 is sort of heralding very quick development with knight c3 and queenside castling, perhaps. So there is some justification, certainly, in giving that check and taking away the c3 square from the knight. Of course, if white had brought the knight to c3 right away, it would be in a pin, and black could potentially double those pawns. And if white interposed with the bishop, then black would be able to castle quickly. Okay, so after bishop e7, now there's no reason at all to delay this any longer, because black is ready to play d5. So he kicks, knight to d5, and queen g4. It's also possible to play c4 first. Perhaps it's somewhat better to chase that knight to b6, because if white tries to do it later, there might be other options for black. And